The mountains were quiet that night, wrapped in a blanket of thin cold air and silver moonlight. High above the small valley, the Asterian observatory sat like a lonely lighthouse pointed at the sky. It was a place most people forgot existed, except for the man who worked there. Dr. Elias Ward was a man of gentle routine. He enjoyed silence more than cities, books more than crowds, and stars more than conversation. His days were spent studying the sky, looking for changes, signals, or any small mystery the universe chose to share. The world knew his name only on paper. To most, he was just another scientist, but solitude had never bothered him. He found peace in knowing that the stars always kept their promises. They rose, they shined, they faded, they returned. But on this particular night, the stars broke their pattern. Elias first noticed it as a flicker, an object crossing the sky far too fast for a satellite, far too controlled for a meteor. At first he thought it might be military equipment, but the trajectory was wrong, and the light seemed almost alive. It changed color, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. He stared at it through his telescope, adjusting focus, breath held tight in his chest. The object fell. A streak of white fire crossed the night sky, cutting through clouds and disappearing behind the ridge of the valley. A deep booming sound followed seconds later, shaking the ground beneath his feet. His heart pounded. This was no plane. This was no rock. This was something else. Elias grabbed his coat and flashlight, keys, and his small emergency kit. He drove down the observatory road, wheels sliding over loose gravel, headlights slicing through darkness. The forest thickened around him as he followed the faint trail of smoke rising into the sky. The closer he came, the more the air smelled strange, sharp, and metallic, like charged electricity. The crash site glowed faintly between the trees. Elias stopped his truck and approached on foot. His breath showed in the cold night air. The forest was silent, almost unnaturally so. In the center of a crater lay a ship. It was nothing like human design. Smooth silver surface shaped like flowing glass rather than metal, curves instead of angles. It pulsed with light that moved under the surface like distant stars drifting in water. The ship was beautiful and frightening. Elias stepped closer, slowly, carefully. Then it opened. The side of the craft split like petals unfolding, releasing a soft white mist. A figure stepped out. She looked almost human, tall, slender, graceful. Her skin held a faint luminescent glow like moonlight trapped under the surface. Her hair flowed like liquid silver, weightless as if underwater, and her eyes were bright, deep, and filled with distant galaxies. Elias froze. The figure watched him, calm but curious. A soft tone emitted from her chest, and a small transparent panel formed near her collarbone, projecting faint symbols. A mechanical voice translated, "Do not fear." Her voice followed immediately after, soft, melodic, as if echoing through crystal. "I mean no harm." Elias swallowed, trying to form words. You're not from here." She tilted her head slightly, considering how to answer. "No, I am heiress of the Luminary Collective. I am an explorer. My vessel was damaged. I require time to repair it." Her tone was calm, practical, like someone stating simple facts. No emotion, no hesitation. Elias took a slow breath. His mind raced with 1,000 questions, but one simple human instinct rose first. "If your ship is damaged, you'll need shelter," he said gently. "It gets very cold here at night." Eris blinked as if surprised, not by his words, but by the concern behind them. "I do not require warmth," she replied. "But shelter may assist in structural repair time." There was something strange in the way she said it. Precise, planned, learned, not felt. It was then Elias noticed something else. Her movement was perfect, too perfect. No hesitation, no instability, no emotion. She was alive, but she was not used to feeling. He nodded slowly. "My observatory is close. You can stay there while you work." Eris studied him for a moment. Humans usually show caution in the presence of unknown life. It wasn't an accusation. It was an observation. Elias allowed a small, soft smile. "Maybe I should be more cautious. But something in me says I shouldn't be." Eris did not smile back. She didn't seem to understand the gesture. She simply walked forward, moving like light itself. The observatory, inside the observatory, Eris observed everything with precise interest, but no emotional reaction. The books, the telescope, the warm lighting, the kettle steaming on the counter. Elias offered her a seat, but she remained standing, examining the star charts pinned to the wall. "You map the sky by hand," she said. "Sometimes," he replied. "It helps me slow down. Helps me think." She touched the paper gently, fingertips glowing faintly. "Your kind still values manual actions even when automated alternatives exist." "That's true," Elias said softly. "We're sentimental creatures, I suppose." Eris turned to look at him directly. Her gaze was intense, not threatening, but deeply analytical. "Sentiment," she said. "That is an emotional logic, inefficient but persistent." Elias chuckled softly. "Yes, very persistent." Eris paused. "You laugh. Why?" "It's just funny," he said, though he struggled to explain. "You speak like emotions are a disease." "I was taught they are a distraction from clarity," she replied without hesitation. "My people evolved past them, or we believed we had." Elias nodded slowly. "And you? Do you feel anything now?" Eris looked away toward the window and the night sky beyond it. "I do not know," she answered. "I observe. I analyze. But there is something, a sensation I cannot classify." Her hand lightly touched her chest right over where a human heart would be. Elias spoke softly. "Maybe you'll learn the word for it." She looked at him again. This time her gaze was not analysis. It was curiosity. Days passed. Eris remained in the observatory for several days, working on repairing her ship remotely. Elias helped where he could, mostly by offering tools, materials, or data equipment. Eris worked with graceful precision, every motion exact, but slowly, things began to change. She started asking questions. Not about science, but about life. Why do humans paint pictures of landscapes they can simply look at? Why do humans sing when speaking is enough? Why do humans touch one another when words would communicate information more clearly? Elias answered each question patiently. "We paint because the world is beautiful and we want to remember how it felt to see it. We sing because sometimes emotions are too large for normal words. We touch because sometimes presence matters more than explanation." Eris listened, not like a scientist, like someone trying to understand something hidden inside themselves. One evening, Elias played soft music on an old speaker. A slow, warm melody filled the observatory. Eris paused mid-task. Her eyes widened only slightly, but the reaction was noticeable. "This sound, it changes something in me. Here." Again, she touched her chest. "That's normal," Elias said gently. "Music speaks to feelings." Eris closed her eyes. For the first time since she arrived, her expression softened. She did not yet know the word. But she was feeling a beginning not yet understood. The days that followed were quiet, gentle, and filled with small moments. Elias brewed tea each morning. Eris sat silently nearby, watching sunlight spread through the windows. They spoke sometimes of stars, sometimes of the smallest things. Birds, wind, rain, a bond formed. Not sudden, not dramatic, but real. Eris did not know what it was. Elias did not push her to define it. And somewhere deep in the endless universe, a signal was already on its way, a signal from her people. But for now, for just these days, Eris learned what it felt like to simply exist, to simply be, to feel, even if she could not name the feeling yet. The days passed quietly in the mountains, each one gentle and unhurried. Eris continued repairing her vessel through remote connection, working from the observatory's computer systems. Elias helped where he could, though he understood little of her advanced technology, yet somehow his presence seemed necessary. Eris never asked him to leave. She simply worked with him nearby as if the silent company had become part of her process. Elias lived his life as he always had. Slow mornings, warm tea, reading at night. But everything felt different. It wasn't just because an alien was living with him. It was because Eris changed the atmosphere around her. Not intentionally, but naturally. Her calmness softened the world. She still spoke with careful logic, but there were small shifts in the way she looked at the sun rising through the observatory windows, or how she paused when listening to music, or how her expression warmed just slightly. When Elias entered the room, She did not smile, not yet. But something like a smile flickered inside her, Elias noticed. He said nothing. A new question. One morning, Eris stood beside the telescope, staring into the daylight sky where stars were hidden. Elias approached quietly. "You're searching for your home?" he asked gently. "No," Eris responded. "My home is always visible to me. My suit connects to luminary star networks. I always know where I came from." Elias nodded. "Then what are you looking at?" Eris took a moment before speaking. "I am searching for meaning," Elias blinked. That was not the answer he expected. "Meaning?" he repeated softly. "Yes." Eris lowered her gaze. "I do not understand the purpose of your emotions. Yet they influence every human choice. Sacrifice, courage, care, attachment. I must learn why." Elias considered his words carefully. Meaning comes from feeling. Feeling gives life direction. Without it, we only exist. With it, we live. Eris looked at him silently, absorbing every word. "And you," she said finally. "You live alone, yet you speak of meaning with certainty." Elias smiled faintly. "I suppose I've been waiting to share it." Her eyes softened, only for a heartbeat. But Elias saw it. It was the beginning of something new. The signal that night. Eris was working at the control terminal when the room suddenly lit with a sharp blue shimmer. A soft hum vibrated through the air. Eris straightened, her posture shifting from gentle relaxation to rigid attention. "What is it?" Elias asked. A low tone emitted from her suit. The same translation panel glowed on her collarbone. Incoming directive from Luminary High Command. Her voice changed, not emotional, but tense, as if something inside her tightened. A holographic screen formed in front of them, showing a symbol Elias had never seen. A geometric star surrounded by layered arcs. It pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. A calm, cold voice spoke from the projection. "Explorer Eris of Vessel Etherian, your signal beacon has been reactivated. We have located your last coordinates. Retrieval vessel en route." The message ended. Silence filled the room. Elias's heart sank a little, though he said nothing. Eris lowered her hand slowly. "It has begun." "What has?" Elias asked quietly. "My return," she answered. "They will come soon. And when they do, they will expect me to be unchanged." Elias stepped closer. "But you have changed." Eris looked at him. She didn't deny it. She just didn't know what to do with the truth. A conversation. Under the stars later that night, they stepped outside into the cold valley. The stars shone with quiet brilliance. Eris gazed at them with a distant expression, as though she saw more than any human eye could. "The Luminary believed emotions caused the fall of our early civilization," Eris explained. "Wars, chaos, grief. So we evolved past them. Or we thought we did. We removed emotional signals from our minds. We chose logic over feeling." "And you?" Elias asked. "Do you believe your people were right?" Eris was silent for a long time. Finally, she said, "I believed it. Until here." The air stirred softly around them. She turned her head toward him, moonlight reflecting in her silver eyes. "You changed something in me," she said, "but I do not understand what it is." Elias's voice was gentle. "You don't have to understand it all at once." Eris looked at him with calm intensity. "But they will take it away. My memories, my experiences here, everything I have learned." Her fingers curled slightly, almost like a wince, though she did not recognize it as pain. "They will reset me," she said softly. Elias exhaled slowly. "Then you have to choose. Do you want to return to who you were?" Eris looked away. "I do not know," she whispered. The arrival 3 days later. The sky changed. It began as a faint shimmer, like heat rising from the horizon. But it grew into a massive light, stretching across the sky like a silver veil. The air vibrated. Birds fell silent. The world seemed to hold its breath. A colossal luminary retrieval cruiser appeared in the sky, silent and gleaming. Its shape was elegant and smooth, like Eris's ship, but on an unimaginable scale. It did not roar. It simply arrived, effortless and commanding. A beam of soft white light descended into the valley. A figure formed within it, the Luminary commander. He resembled Eris in shape, but his presence was colder. His eyes held no curiosity, only absolute certainty. His voice carried the smooth, emotionless cadence of practiced logic. Eris. Eris stood straight, almost instinctively reverting to old discipline. Elias stood beside her, though he felt small in the presence of such a being. You were expected to return within standard cycle parameters, the commander said. Your exposure to unregulated emotional culture has resulted in contamination. You will be restored. Eris's hands tightened at her sides. Elias stepped forward before she could speak. She is not contaminated, he said. She is evolving. The commander turned his head toward Elias, studying him like one might study a tiny organism on glass. You are the human, he said. The variable in her deviation. A faint light flickered in the commander's palm. A device. A threat, though not verbalized. Eris immediately stepped forward, placing herself between Elias and the commander. That one small motion said more than language could. The commander paused. You defend the human, he observed. Eris spoke clearly, though her voice trembled slightly, not with fear, but with something new. Yes, why? Eris closed her eyes for a moment, just a moment, and breathed. When she opened them, something warm shone there. Because he taught me what my people lost, she said. He taught me to feel. He taught me to care. That is not contamination. The commander regarded her silently. Emotion is instability, he replied. Emotion is life, Eris answered. Elias felt his chest tighten, not with fear, but with quiet awe. The commander did not argue. Perhaps he could not, because logic alone could not combat what Eris had discovered. Finally, he spoke. Return to the vessel. Your case will be evaluated by the council. Eris turned to Elias. Her expression held something fragile. Something new. I must go, she said. If I do not, they will bring force. I do not want harm, Elias nodded slowly. His voice was steady, though his heart ached. I know. Eris reached out. For the first time, without hesitation, she touched his hand. The contact was gentle, warm, real. I do not know what I am feeling, she said softly, but I know it is important. Elias held her hand carefully. You'll understand it, he whispered. And when you do, come back. Eris did not smile, but her eyes shone. I will try. The beam of light gathered around her. The commander stepped back into it. The sky swallowed them, and the valley was quiet again. Elias stood alone, but he did not feel empty. The valley was quiet again, but it did not feel the same. The air felt heavier, like something important had been taken from it. Elias stood alone at the place where Eris had been taken, the last trace of the white beam fading into the sky. The mountains around him were unchanged. The trees still swayed in the cold wind. The sky still held its silent, distant stars. But for Elias, the world felt different. He walked back to the observatory slowly. Every corner still held some piece of her presence. The chair where she studied music, the telescope where she stood to watch the horizon, the cup she held even though she did not need to drink. He sat down at the table and placed his hands over his eyes. It was not grief he felt. It was something gentler, something deeper. Hope. Eris, among her people. Far beyond Earth, beyond even the nearest cluster of stars, the luminary retrieval cruiser entered orbit around a luminous world of white and silver. Towers rose like crystal spires, floating platforms drifted through blue air, and light seemed to move through the architecture like living rivers. This was Luminary Prime, her home. Eris stepped onto the platform with measured steps. Her body moved with the calm precision expected of her people, but her heart, though she did not yet know how to name it, felt heavy. She was brought before the High Council of Clarity, a group of luminari who had devoted their lives to maintaining the emotionless order of their civilization. The council chamber glowed faintly, like the inside of a star. The council members observed her with quiet intensity. Eris, one of them said, "Your behavior indicates emotional development. This must be corrected." Eris stood straight, but her voice was soft. "I do not wish to be corrected." A ripple moved through the room. Not shock, but disapproval. "You resist restoration," another voice said. "Why?" Eris closed her eyes. The image of Elias standing beside her in the valley appeared in her mind. Not a memory of sight, a memory of feeling, because it mattered. Because it changed her. Because it awakened something true. She opened her eyes. "I have discovered that emotion is not weakness," she said. "Emotion gives purpose, meaning, direction." The council's lights flickered faintly like blinking eyes. "Emotion leads to chaos," a council member replied. "Chaos leads to destruction. We removed it to survive." Eris shook her head gently. "You removed it to exist," she said. "But you stopped living." Her voice echoed softly in the chamber. The words were simple yet powerful, not because of force, but because they were true. One council member leaned forward. "What evidence do you have that emotion is beneficial?" Eris placed her hand over her chest. "Because I feel," she said, "and I am more complete now than I have ever been." Silence followed. For the luminary, silence was not emptiness. It was consideration, a choice made of light. The council spoke among themselves through silent mental channels. Eris waited. Her hands were still, her stance calm, but she felt something within her. A pulse, a warmth, a quiet courage. Finally, the council addressed her. "We acknowledge that your development is unique, perhaps evolutionary, but if emotion spreads uncontrolled, our society may fracture." Eris lifted her chin slightly. "Then do not suppress it," she said. "Guide it, learn it, balance it." The council considered again. Emotions were not a threat now. They were an unexplored frontier. "Finally, you will not be corrected." Eris's breath left her, not because she needed to breathe, but because relief had learned how to live inside her. "But you must leave our world," the council continued, "not as exile, but as a bridge. Between us and them." Eris looked up. "A bridge," she repeated. "Yes," the council confirmed. "You will return to the human who changed you. You will learn more. And when we are ready, you will guide us." Eris bowed her head. "I accept." The retrieval cruiser returned Eris to Earth, not with secrecy, not with fear, but with quiet respect. The ship descended into the valley once more. The white beam of light touched the ground. Inside the observatory, Elias felt the air shift. The floor vibrated softly. His heart began to race, not with panic, but with something bright and overwhelming. He ran outside. The light faded, and Eris stood there. She looked different, not in form, but in presence. There was warmth in her expression now, something gentle and soft, something human, and yet not human at all. Elias walked toward her slowly at first, then stopped just a few steps away. "You came back," he whispered. Eris nodded. "Yes." Elias let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. "What happened?" he asked. Eris raised her hand and placed it over her chest. "I learned the name. For the feeling," she said softly. Elias waited. Eris stepped closer. "It is called love." The word was simple, small, quiet, but it changed everything. Elias felt his eyes warm, but not with sorrow, with joy. "Eris," he whispered. She reached out, not uncertain this time, but with gentle certainty, and took his hand. The warmth of her touch felt like sunlight, a new path forward. The days that followed were unlike any that had come before. Eris remained on Earth, not hiding, but simply living quietly, learning more each day. She walked with Elias through forests, listened to the laughter of passing rivers, watched children play in small towns nearby, listened to music for hours at a time. She smiled now, not constantly, not widely, but softly, like a moonrise. Sometimes she would pause and place her hand over her chest, as if reminding herself of something she never wished to forget. The human heart was not a weakness. It was a compass. At night, they stood outside the observatory and looked at the stars. "So many worlds," Elias said softly. "So many lives," Eris nodded. "And now one path between them." He looked at her. "You." She looked back at him. "Us. The future." The luminary did not forget Eris. They watched, studied, learned slowly. And in time, more of her people would come, not to conquer, not to correct, but to understand. A bridge had been formed, not through power, not through war, but through the simplest, strongest thing the universe had ever known. Connection, Eris and Elias remained together, not as legend, not as symbol, but as two souls who discovered each other at the exact moment the universe needed them to. Some stories change worlds, some stories rewrite history. But this one taught the stars how to love.